money. And so she's a personal finance educator and coach. She's just fine if you call her Money Queen. That will work for her. And she's been helping others get their money in order since 2012. So if you were in our room, you learned that she was a librarian, as indicated by her bun. And now it was really on the path to really helping use that skill set in the financial realm. And then we have the amazing Sarah Paulson, who is a CFP. So again, super impressive. I love that. With Valkyrie Financial, and she's focusing on coaching and empowerment. And what I really liked from your bio, Sarah, is that you focus on kind of millennials and really helping serve that population that maybe don't typically have the finances quite yet. So I really love that. So super excited. When we said we want this fun and engaging, they took it and they ran. So I'm going to introduce these awesome lassies.
All right, give me one moment to get my presentation rolling for you ladies. From the beginning, because we've got some fun graphics and you definitely don't want to miss that. All right, I have to ask, everybody can see the screen? Perfect. Yep. All right.
Yep.
Hopefully you can all hear me. No one will be on mute. We will never have to say any of those Zoom meeting sayings again. All right, so we are here to ask the question, got wealth? Kristen already did a wonderful job of introducing the lassies here. The Scottish theme will be introduced in just a moment, but hang with us here. Because I am a registered investment advisor with the great state of Wisconsin, I am legally required to share this slide with you and ask that you please do not use anything that I or Kate say as information as for a recommendation for yourself. Also, please don't sue me. That would be mean. Now, the wealth gap and all of the various veins feeding into it, it's a deep knot of social, economic, and psychological issues. And I have gone down so many fun rabbit holes over the years in my research of this topic, but Kate and I only have 45 minutes. So our goal today is to make the next hour like a Scotsman's kilt, like you see here. We're going to make it long enough to cover the important bits, yet short enough to keep it interesting. I also have to apologize to you because if Kate and I do a decent job today, we're probably about to make you a little bit angry and a little bit depressed. So sorry. The first thing that I always like to share with my clients, with people I'm talking to, with presentations, with random strangers in a bar that talk to me about what I do, is to share that personal finance is not a topic that's taught. We see the stats over and over again that there is just very little financial literacy in this country. And again, it's because it's not taught. So like you see on the slide, adults really drilled stop, drop, and roll into our heads. But you know what? I have never once been on fire, yet I deal with money pretty much every day. So there are no stupid questions. If anything that we say here or anything that you hear in conversations in the future doesn't quite make sense to you, please, please, please do not have any shame in stopping and asking, what does that mean? Please explain it to me. Cool? Cool. All right, so let's level set and talk about what is wealth. I like to think of income, which is a thing that we're all very familiar with. We all get our paychecks. Income is kind of like a river, and wealth is the lake. Not all rivers lead to a lake, right? Some just keep on flowing to the ocean, which is a saltwater body and has nothing to do with this analogy. But some rivers stop up and start creating a lake. They flood into this calmer body of water, which is wealth. Wealth is a pool that you can draw resources from. The levels will go up and down, just like spring floods and summer droughts, but it's still more reliable than a constantly rushing river. It also takes longer to dry up if you cut its source. Bringing this back to the real world, wealth is your assets minus your liabilities. Here's that math portion. You might also know it as your net worth. I mean, it is possible to have a negative net worth if the money you owe is more than what you own, which is a common thing that we see for people who have big student loans. And it does happen, but obviously the goal is to make your assets positive. Okay, so we all agree on what wealth is, right? Let's take a look at what we're here to actually talk about, eh? The gap between the wealth men and women hold is staggering. This chart reveals some very interesting socioeconomic clues for us. First off, by looking at the mean wealth on the right-hand side of the chart, we can tell that there are some crazy rich individuals who are skewing our data. So let's ignore that for today. And let's focus on the left side, the median wealth. It gives us a better picture of what's going on in the whole country for most people. Now we can see that being married has some kind of a benefit there. Either it's because more high income people tend to get married, a little bit of a culture thing there, or rather that either that being married comes with tax benefits, or the benefit of having two people who can kind of divide and conquer to get better results. Obviously, it's also a bit more difficult to pull apart the wealth shared by a couple. So let's take a look at what we can measure. Single women hold just 32 cents to every single man's dollar. And unfortunately, like most things, if we split this out by race, the picture gets even more grim. Unsurprisingly, white people hold more wealth than Black or Hispanic men or women. So what is causing this? Let's talk about some of those. Obviously, the gender wage gap is a part of the problem. You know, most financial rules of thumb call for saving a certain percentage of your income, which if your income is starting as a smaller number, it's going to lead to a smaller percentage. I mean, there's also the fact that there are just some fixed costs to living. Rent doesn't get any cheaper because you're a woman and you're making less, right? And actually, let's totally forget those fixed costs. The pink tax is a thing. The pink tax. It's actually more expensive to be a woman in some cases. And all of this adds up to just less money that women have to save. The roles a woman will serve throughout her life means she saves less too. The average woman will spend 44% of her life outside the workforce, about half, versus only 26% of a man's lifetime that he'll spend outside of the workforce. Between caregiving for children, caregiving for elderly parents, possibly caregiving for a spouse, women are expected to fulfill these unpaid caregiving roles. And the past year and a half just proves this point that women are our social safety net. When schools went virtual due to COVID, the responsibility fell to mothers. Now, there have been many attempts to estimate what these gaps cost to women. And Merrill Lynch's Women and Financial Wellness study estimates that based on a woman's potential earnings from age 23 through retirement at age 65, which you're seeing on the screen there, she will have lost out on over $1 million in lifetime income, benefits, and investment growth because of the income gap and these career gaps. Unfortunately, we can't entirely blame the system, though. Women also make active choices that hurt our wealth building. In a recent study conducted by UBS Wealth Management, 49% of women admitted that they allow their spouse to take the lead on long-term financial decisions. I get it. As women, we already do so much extra work at home. Adding just one more responsibility to that list seems totally overwhelming, especially when it's a topic you haven't been taught. But giving up the responsibility just means gambling with our future. As an advisor, I have helped countless newly widowed women who had absolutely no idea how to handle their money without a spouse. It was heartbreaking to be a part of. Trust me when I say that dealing with the stress of learning your money on top of mourning the loss of a loved one is not a situation that you want to be in. We need to talk about money more. I would argue that money is the last socially taboo topic. In a game of would you rather, 61% of women said they would rather talk about their own death with other people than they would talk about their money. And I'm a millennial. We are pretty cool talking about religion, politics, sex, but we still hesitate to talk about money. My peers are 3 times as likely to talk about sex as we are to talk about our money. So why is this important? Why do women really need to take charge? Let's do this poll question. What ratio of women will be alone in their adult life, either by divorce or due to death? At some point, you're going to have to take charge of your own money. Most people think it won't happen to them, but what ratio do you think women actually have to face this? Shall we see?
Sarah, is a poll going to come up? This is Kristen. Is a poll going to come up, or do we want to put it in a chat?
Kate, do you got this one?
Yep. I can turn on the poll. There we are.
Oh, thank you. %60 have voted. Woohoo, look at you ladies coming on in. Now, you're not just answering that because I accidentally hit the slide too soon, right? Okay. All right, we have 86% have voted. So let's share the results because most of you are correct. 8 in 10 women will experience some time during her adult life without a partner. We all know that we probably know that there's a 40 to 50% chance that a marriage will end in divorce. And a married woman at age 60 has a 2 out of 3 chance of outliving her husband. And wives who do survive their husbands live about 5 years past them. Like I said, when you're mourning the death of a loved one, that is not the time that you want to be figuring out your money. And this is happening in our own community too. This slide was extracted from the Status of Women in Northeastern Wisconsin report, an amazing resource done by our local women's funds. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. The part that I really want to focus on is this far right column. Now, when we see 12% of women age 75 and over living in poverty, that's a little bit scary, but not too bad. It's not like over here. But in 2014, 46% of all elderly unmarried females receiving Social Security benefits relied on Social Security for 90% or more of their income. Elderly women are less likely than elderly men to have significantly family income from pensions and other Social Security, meaning if that social safety net of Social Security was not there, we would see this number skyrocket, which is a huge problem. So what can we do about this? Kate, want to take it from here?
Yes. All right. I'm going to share my screen.
Yep.
Then.
You take it from me?
Yeah, wait, can you close your share screen and then? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. Here is the sitch, so to speak. Because of our own gender expectations and our personal beliefs, we just don't take charge of our long-term money. Money seems scarier to us. And like, we just sort of like let somebody else do it. Then we don't even earn enough. I mean, Sarah talked about the wage gap. Plus you got a wage gap on top of taking all this time out of work to take care of other people. We don't earn enough throughout our life. And lastly, we don't invest enough in our life. Like, we just are too cautious with our money, and there's a myriad of reasons for that. So I am going to start off here by talking about how we recognize and stop both the external and internal beliefs that limit what we believe we can do, what we believe we should do, what we believe we're actually capable of doing. Because if you aren't able to break out of these limiting beliefs, then you won't be able to make your money grow really big, which is what Sarah is going to talk about when I'm done. So the reasons why women tend not to deal with money, hugely complicated. But one major reason is that society doesn't expect it of us. There are a lot of external influences on us as adults. Now, like there was a linguistic study of magazine articles, and in it, researchers found that women and men are actually being split into two groups: frivolous spenders and empowered earners. And like, I don't even need to tell you which one women are. You know which one women were put into. And the thing is, when they define us as frivolous spenders, that means all the articles are focusing on are things like limiting spending, resisting splurges, saving small amounts of money, being thrifty, earning little bits of money on the side, or finding a means of support like a parent or a husband. So basically, we're being taught to play defense. We're not playing offense. And how are we going to score any goals if we only have a defense, right? Our takeaway is that money is finite. And in order to have more of this finite resource, you have to spend less. Any financial professional will tell you that since we've gone off the gold standard, money is infinite. Okay, that's how they talked to women. How do they talk to men? Well, 2/3 of articles for men emphasize that making money is a masculine ideal, right? Like to have status, to get ahead makes you a real man. And in order to have status and get ahead, you need to be financially literate and financially successful. So in men's like magazine landscape, their finances are depicted as something that is conquered by those who are strong and brave enough to do it. Men are being taught to play offense. Basically, their takeaway is show me the money. But wait, there's more. In a study of popular images, more than half infantilized women and money. Okay, what does this mean? Well, it shows women putting small amounts of money into piggy banks. I say this as someone who has piggy banks in her background. It shows us putting small amounts of money into piggy banks. It shows us handling small amounts of money or happily borrowing money, or creepily enough, passively watching as someone else handles money. All things that children do. Of course, you know, how many of the images showed that in men's magazines or of men, it was only 1 in 10 showed that type of image of men. How were men portrayed? You may be asking. Unsurprisingly, men were handling large wads of cash, paying bills, making deals, even flaunting money. It is enough to make a girl very mad. And since we're all soaking in this media marinade of infantilization and thriftiness, it's near impossible not to internalize some of it. So here's my first takeaway for you guys. We're going to smash this double standard. I want you to start absorbing all money media, whether it's geared to you or not, because we have to break this idea that the primary ways to handle money is through restriction and thrift and saving little bits. It's more complicated than that. We need to play offense as well. We need to recognize that we should also be focusing on earning more, not just small jobs on the side, but really believing that we can and deserve to earn our full market value. We need to be taking calculated investing risks, not just keeping money in a savings account, which Sarah will discuss about how those aren't really any good. And lastly, we need to see ourselves as handling big wads of cash, not coins. really thinking big, because the words and images used in magazines informs our perception of ourselves and our situation. And frankly, now that you're aware of how women are portrayed with money in the media, I bet from now on, when you see another article telling you to be thrifty and stop spending, you'll remember this presentation and think about how men aren't told the same thing. It's a double standard, and we're going to stop that. Now, those are the external influences. What about internal influences, the stuff we got in our brains? All that money stuff bouncing around your subconscious. Well, we have a lot of beliefs about money in our subconscious that were learned in childhood, which may or may not be serving us now and may or may not actually be correct. So for example, I'm going to bring up a poll here about common money sayings. I want you to tell me, answer as many common money sayings that you heard a lot growing up. Not just ones you heard once in a while, but like the ones your parents kind of repeated over and over and over again. Are you guys seeing
Choose
this
as
poll?
many as you want.
Yes, you can choose more than one. Just click, 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 click. Nine of 15. Okay, I'll give you another couple seconds for the last two. Okay, I'm going to end this poll here. Right? 100% of you, money doesn't grow on trees. I'm with you guys. Money can't buy happiness. Money is the root of all evil. Imagine being a kid growing up in a house where you hear you have to spend money to make money. You never hear money doesn't grow on trees. As you're growing up, your idea of how we should be handling money will be different than somebody who grows up thinking money doesn't grow on trees. So our beliefs come from a lot of different places, not just money sayings. Let's see here. There we go. And these beliefs inform our relationship and behavior with money. Okay, we get them from common money sayings. How our parents handled money directly informs how we are going to handle money. I mean, statistically, obviously, there's always going to be outliers. People are going to be like, my parents were terrible with money and I'm great. Of course, these are generalizations. We learn money lessons from our favorite children's stories. Think about it. Cinderella, poor virtuous girl saved from a rich, evil stepmother by a rich prince. Snow White is saved by poor, virtuous dwarves, almost killed by rich queen, saved by a rich prince. Aladdin is a poor, virtuous man who defeats an evil, rich sorcerer and gets a rich princess to marry him. Kids, as early as 3, understand the concept of money. They're learning money lessons from these stories that we teach them, as well as all the other good lessons that we tell them these stories for. And then another place that we get our money beliefs from are memorable moments from our childhood. Things that happened that really made an impact on us and influenced our future behavior. Again, our relationship to and behavior with money is derived from these and more. I only have like 3 minutes, you guys, so I can't really go over the entirety of this situation. But these are the big ones. These are how we learn to deal with money. Now, some of the beliefs that we get are actually serving us really well. It's important to save for a rainy day, gets the Ms. Moody thumbs up. Great one. Go with that. Good belief. Another one, which sounds crazy when you say it out loud, but truly many people believe this. It's impossible to be rich and a good person. If we have that belief, consciously or subconsciously, what do you think the chances are that we're going to be actively looking for wealth and gaining wealth and learning about how to grow our wealth? We're not. And then, of course, there's some beliefs where, like, sometimes they serve you really well, sometimes they don't. You shouldn't tell others how much you make or ask what they make. Look, if you're at a party and you meet somebody for the first time, don't have the first question you're asking them, how much money do you make? Because that's going to make you a big old weirdo and they're going to walk away. Right? That belief serves you very well in that situation. But not knowing what others make or what our market value is one of the leading reasons why women don't make as much as their male counterparts. It's a huge reason for the wage gap, which is a huge reason for the wealth gap. Women literally don't know that they're being underpaid. So it's really important that we actually start talking about money. As Sarah mentioned, it's one of the last taboo topics, and we need to start talking about it. So for these internal beliefs that we are struggling with, how are we going to change those? Well, when you find yourself in a financially stressful situation, you do the following. Take a step back. We're going to separate emotions from logic. So I recently got a wheelie chair, and I have learned exactly how unlevel my wooden floors are in my 100-year-old house. Now, I need to buy a rug. When I think about buying a rug, I immediately, I can feel myself tense up. All right, I get stressed out. The thoughts that going through my head, oh God, I have to spend $200 on a rug. Ugh, that's a lot of money for something that I just walk on, right? Where is this thought coming from? What is the underlying belief that that's where my head goes? The underlying belief is that because of the way I raise, because of all those things, I believe there isn't enough money, that money is something precious that needs to be hoarded. And those beliefs aren't serving me in this situation. So I'm going to challenge these beliefs. Can I prove them wrong? Well, okay, is there enough money? I can check my bank account. Yeah, there's enough money. It's fine. No big deal. Who cares? Money is precious and needs to be hoarded? Well, no, I know that that's not true. Money's important, but it's not precious. It's only as valuable as what you can buy with it. It's a tool. And you know what? Not rolling back to my door every time I try to get away from my desk would be worth $200. Plus, it would really make the room look quite nice. Okay. So I'm going to consciously decide that these beliefs are not helping me, that they are hurting me. And now I'm able to, okay, just go out and enjoy my life, to be able to spend this money guilt-free. All right. That's my internal beliefs that we need to smash in order to gain wealth. Sarah is going to talk about how we actually, what we need to do to gain wealth. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here. Sarah, you're going to pick that up? Ooh, make sure to unmute.
I was hoping we wouldn't have to do that phrase. I screwed up. Sorry. Okay. Anyways. All right. So get wealth. Part 2. Let's go beyond the bank. Now, money is a tool. Investing is a tool. We need to stop feeling shame around these tools. This is my phone. This is a tool. Do I feel shame about buying it, paying for it, using it? Well, heck no, except for one dating app, but we don't talk about that one anymore. Was there a little bit of a learning curve for me to figure out how to use my phone? You bet there was, but learning it made my life so much better. I don't need to know how to code an app. I just need to know where to tap the screen. And we should view investments the same way. Investing should be seen as a bill for your future self. Studies show that most women know how to pay bills. They know how to write the check. They know how to do the short-term money management, but we need to focus longer. Now, for the next couple slides, actually the remainder of my slides, I am going to focus on retirement, since that is the biggest concern most people have about their money. And I only have 15 minutes. It's a short kilt here, ladies. Let's talk about investing. I'm going to run down the big categories of investments from least risky to most risky. A good investment portfolio is not a complicated one. Too often, I see investors get sucked in by the siren song of some super sexy, complex scheme. And the data just shows us that those don't work over time. Things like startup companies are not suitable for the vast majority of investors. And please do not get me started on cryptocurrencies. I have strong opinions. They are not positive. Those asset classes are more speculation than investment. If you are absolutely in love with them, talk to a professional advisor about how they fit into your portfolio and what an appropriate exposure is. Now, back to the pyramid that you see on your screen here. Cash forms the foundation. It's not at the base because you should have a portfolio with more cash than anything else, but because it carries the least risk. More risk equals more reward as we go up top. Sorry, checking the chats. But oops, no, things have just gone off the rails, guys. Sorry.
Chat is just me trying to get people to rile you up.
It's successful. All right. Even with the chance of reward, even with the chance of reward, saving cash has absolutely, it has a place in your life. Cash in the bank is familiar, right? It is FDIC insured, so it's very, very safe. If your bank goes under, the government is going to give you your money back. And we know how to use cash money. We know how to use those dollar bills. Part of your holistic financial life should absolutely be an emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of living expenses ready to go in the bank. You can pull it at a moment's notice. That should happen. You should also hold in cash any goals, projects, dreams, bills that you know are coming due in the next 2 to 5-ish years. Those big things that we don't really want to take a risk with because we know they're going to happen and we know we're going to have to pay for them. Where cash doesn't have much of a place is in your investment and retirement accounts. A lot of 401k funds, employer-sponsored retirement funds offer what is called a stable value fund. And it sounds really, really good because who doesn't want stable value in their investments? But it isn't really an investment. It's a fancy word for cash. Remember, risk reward. If it's called stable value, that means it isn't going up and your money isn't working for you. Let's look at the next rung on our investment pyramid here. Bonds. They're basically a loan that you make to a company, just like when a person borrows money from a bank and they have to pay interest to the bank. A company will borrow money from an investor and pay interest to the people who own those bonds. The company will also return the initial money that they borrowed at the end of the bond's life. Because that money is coming back at a specific time, there isn't usually a ton of risk involved in bonds. Again, less risk equals less reward, but there is a chance that the business could go out of business before they pay your money back. And there's a chance that you could get more interest from a different bond. So there is a little bit of a risk, and you will get a better return than in cash because you are earning that interest. Finally, our middle rung of the pyramid are stocks. They're pieces of ownership in companies. If you own one share of Apple, technically you own a piece of Apple, and you could tell CEO Tim Cook whatever you think Apple should do. He's probably not going to listen to you because there are trillions of shares of Apple and trillions of owners, but legally you can do it. Being an owner of a company means you get to participate in the growth of that company. Stocks can go down, but there is a risk of losing the money that you put in if the company goes out of business, but most of the time stocks go up. How much do they often go up? Let's see what you think. What is the average annual growth of the top 500 stocks in America, also called the S&P 500, over the past 50 years? Put another way, if we smoothed out the change in value over the past 50 years to be a straight line, how much would your money have grown every year? We've got 8 out of 15 voting. 73% have voted. I'll give you just a second left. 14 out of 15. All right. And pool. Sure results. split across the board. That's really cool. The fact is, the stock market's average annual return since 1970 is 10.9%, almost 11%. And yes, that includes the dot-com bubble, the Great Recession, the COVID crash that we experienced last year. Now, if you could give yourself an 11% raise every year, would you do it? I bet you would. This is the part where I am legally obligated to say that past performance is not an indicator of future results legally. But the fact is that stocks do go down about 25% of the time. You have to be willing to hold on during those times. This is one of my favorite stock charts of all time. And it shows that when stocks do go down, it can feel like the end of the world. Behavioral finance studies have found that a loss hurts twice as much as a gain of the same amount. Feels good. Which is why it is a good idea to have a diverse mix of holdings in your investment portfolio. Having assets other than stocks helps smooth out the ride so you don't go, it's over, someone hit the lights, I want out. And yes, this kind of a roller coaster is what stock investing can feel like in a nutshell. It's why I tell my clients, do not look at your portfolio every day. That's my job. Just relax. All right, so takeaway number 3. Kate already gave you 2 takeaways. I'm going to give you your third. It's that we need to make our money work for us. We need to harness the power of what's called compound interest. Compound interest is a lot like bunny rabbits, and that once they start to multiply, it just kind of gets out of control. And it can be a really powerful force in a portfolio. As you can see here, we've got, if you had put $100 into different asset classes, we have just inflation, that $100 isn't worth as much as it was. If you had matched inflation, it grows up a little bit. If you put it in short-term investments, it grows. Bonds, you can see it's a little bit smoother. You're getting that interest. There's a little bit of the risk. Stocks, lots of growth, but some fluctuations there that you probably don't want to feel. That's why we need to take intentional risks with investments to harness the power of compound growth. No regrets, ladies. Not investing more is women's #1 financial regret. And look at the options that we have on this chart. The least regretted one is living below or within my means. Kind of like Kate talked about, we're told to be frugal, to not spend as much, but that's not what we regret. We regret not investing. Okay, so how do we get started? Great, Sarah, you've convinced me. I need to do this. Most employers offer some kind of retirement account. It's a 401k, a 403b, maybe a SEP or a 457 or some other kind of alphanumeric soup type of account. There's a lot of them. There's 22 different accounts that I had to learn about for the CFP exam. All different. It's insane. There are even special investment accounts offered for self-employed workers that give you great tax benefits and write-offs. Whatever it is, you need to take advantage of that account, making contributions to whatever you have access to and taking intentional risk with your investments within those accounts will help close the investment or the wealth gap. Making sure your employer is paying you a fair and equal wage compared to your colleagues will also trickle into these contributions. Always know your worth and then add tax. What if you're not working? What if you're taking off one of those gaps to, again, care for a kid, care for a parent, care for your spouse? What if you're not working? Many people don't know this, and it's one of the facts why we see these gaps between men and women's investment accounts. But there is a thing called a spousal IRA. As long as one of the partners in the household is earning an income, both partners can make contributions to their own IRAs. And notice I said your own. The I in IRA stands for individual. It is yours and yours alone. Having your own account is empowering. It gives you that chance to work with investments, get comfortable with them so that you don't face that situation, like I said, of not knowing how to manage your money if you end up alone. But having an IRA itself isn't investing. It's just the vehicle. You have to put that money into investments, into stocks, bonds, things that will make you money. And this is where women can continue to close the wealth gap. A study by BlackRock Investments found that women put 71% of their investments into cash-like investments. That's not going to help us get where we need to go, ladies. The right mix of how much of your money is in stocks versus bonds versus cash, it's entirely up to you and your comfort level with money risk. However, the less risk you are willing to take to grow your money, the more money you will have to put in to achieve the same end goal. Back to my river and lake example from earlier, a stronger stream will fill up the lake sooner. Now, I know this can be an intimidating topic. Like I said, this isn't something that we're taught. But you do know more than you think you know. And you should never, ever be afraid to ask questions. Again, there are no stupid questions on a topic that you weren't taught. Now, fully 2/3 of married women said that they defer money decisions to their spouse because they feel he knows more about money. And I am here to tell you that is absolute baloney. Although men often say they have more confidence in their ability to invest, a Fidelity investment study found that it's women who actually outperform on average by almost 0.5% every year. 0.5% may not sound like much, but it adds up over a lifetime. Now, if you are working with an advisor and your advisor doesn't include you in the conversation, doesn't encourage you to ask questions, doesn't want to answer your questions, or makes you feel stupid for asking, I am here to tell you they are the wrong advisor. It's your money, and you should understand what's going on with it. What do you think, Kate? You want to wrap this up?
Yeah, I do. Your mission, should you choose to accept, and you should.
And you should.
All right, guys, we got to break gender expectations and think big. We got to play offense as well as defense. Society has primed us to think small and save rather than earn. So we need that. We need to determine and rewrite these subconscious scripts that are bouncing around our heads and are not serving us anymore. And unless you're like the weirdo at the party.
Don't be the weirdo at the party.
Don't be the weirdo at the party. All right, number 2, we need to talk about money. Money is arguably the last socially taboo topic to talk about. But we need to seek out what our market value is, and we need to tell other women what their market value is, especially women just entering the workforce. They need to know whether or not they're actually getting their fair market value. And beyond that, though, have a conversation with other women about how they handle money. Like, if you know women who aren't working outside the home, make sure to tell them that they can and should set up an IRA if their partner is working outside the home. And then lastly, check that your investments are in the right place for your future life. Do not put all that into the cash money that does nothing ever. Sit there. Like, check that at least half your investment portfolios in stocks, and if you don't have an investment portfolio, get one. Remember, calculated risks bring great rewards. Now, Sarah, can you flip to the next one?
You got it.
Thank you. So I hope we've done what we promised. We have covered everything important while being short enough to be interesting. So you guys, bring on the questions. What do you want to know? And remember, no stupid questions. There are no stupid questions for a topic you were not taught about. And I think you can either put them in the chat or direct message Kristen. Kristen, how do you want people?
I was just going to say, if you want to, we're a small enough group, if you want to unmute and just ask the question or put it in the chat, that is fine as well. But while people are formulating their questions, thank you so much. I saw myself in a lot of this, in the internal parts of it, just in so many things. So great. Okay. And it looks like we have a question. Are Roth IRAs better? Let's get your take on that.
Like almost everything in finance, it depends. It really depends on what so the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA is with an IRA, you're putting that money in before income taxes. So you actually, when you make a contribution to your IRA, you get a write-off on your taxes now for that contribution, but you will have to pay them when you take the money out in retirement. With a Roth, you pay the taxes now, which means it's tax-free when you take it out. The short answer is Roths are really good for people who are earning less now than they know they're going to have in retirement. If you're in a lower tax bracket now than you're going to be when you leave the workforce, yeah, you want to pay the taxes when you're in a lower tax bracket. But there are so many different things that go into it. There isn't one right or wrong. It really all depends. And that's where finance is unnecessarily complicated. And that's where it's really great to bring in a professional.
Yeah, money is like a one size fits all clothing. It doesn't actually one size fit. Like there's no such thing as a good looking one size fits all piece of clothing. Like everybody's situation is different.
Thank you. Okay, so my question is, should I be buying individual stocks then? Is that one of my takeaways here? What do I need to be doing?
For most people, individual stocks they don't make sense. In most cases, having a basket like a mutual fund or an ETF. Mutual funds are what is in most 401k plans. It's a pre-selected basket by a professional investment manager. They're doing all the crazy C-scores, beta risk analysis, correlation coefficient, super in-depth calculations to make sure that they're investing in good companies for you. Most people don't have the time, the inclination, or the knowledge to be investing in individual stocks. Yeah, so I would say look for a well-diversified, low-cost basket that's already been put together for you, and then find a good mix of a couple baskets. So you're going to be like an old Dutch woman carrying all these baskets to market.
Okay, great visual.
That answered the question.
Well, okay, which kind of leads to then you were talking about make sure that your advisor is including you and answering your questions, et cetera. So any pointers, like if someone is going out and just they're going to be finding a new advisor, what we need to be looking for, how we do that? So
the number one thing is your advisor should be able to easily tell you how they get paid. Unfortunately, it's just a fact of life. We are in this business to pay our own bills and to make money. And a lot of advisors come up with these complex situations of what does this all mean? So make sure that how you are paying your advisor makes sense. It should be simple as possible. The next thing that you want to ask is, are they a fiduciary? Fiduciary means they are working in your best interest and your best interest only. A lot of advisors are legally allowed to work under what's called the suitability clause, which means that a suggestion that they make for you and your investments in your financial life might be suitable for you, but it might also make a lot of sense for their paycheck, which just creates this conflict of interest. So you want to have that fiduciary. They need to be looking out for you. Other than that, it is a relationship, like Kate and I talked about. This is the last socially taboo topic. Find someone that you click with. You want this to, I don't want to be talking to someone and have it be the worst conversation of their life. because they don't want to deal with the situation. If they click with me, it's going to make it so much easier. We can talk together. Anything else you would add, Kate?
Yeah, I would say definitely on top of that, meet with a few financial advisors,
Oh, yeah.
because if they're good at their job, they're extremely charming people, and you'll want to hire the first one that you meet with. Like if they're if they're not charming, they're not going to be in the business very long. And generally avoid tall men.
Oh, yes, that is a thing.
There's psychological studies, just like socially we trust tall men more. We think that they have more authority and they know more. They don't. They're just a person who happens to be tall. 30% of Fortune 500 CEOs are over 6'2". Only like 3.5% of the population is over 6'2", right? And I think it's like 60% of Fortune 500 CEOs are over 6 foot tall. Like it's nuts, but that's one of my go-tos. They might be very good. You know, don't not go to someone because they're a tall man, but just be aware that we have these biases in our heads.
Well, thank you. Okay, my husband is 6'2", so now I'm like, was I bamboozled? Has this been a ruse?
I mean, it seems to have worked. How long have you been with him? It seems to have gone okay. So
26 years. It's
Yeah,
very powerful. Okay, so I want to make sure that Mary Ann and Sarah have time to wrap up. Oh my gosh, now I need to hear about crypto. There's so much information. I hope you are reading in the comments the love that you are getting and how people enjoyed this presentation. So thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to, so applause to Mary Ann and Sarah. Thank you both for such a great job.
Thank you for having us. It was an honor.
Thank you both. Very, very enjoyable, very crisp, very clean, lots of great points. By the way, my husband is 6'6.5". Anyway, there we go. Are there any announcements? Anything anybody chairs or anybody want to say or announce? Anybody? Brenda, Tina, anybody have an announcement? Go ahead, Irene.
Well, Kristen and I have to, ensure everybody knows July program in person, Scudamore Country Club, speed networking. Bring your business cards, find your business cards. When's the last time you touched your business cards? Come, it should be a great way to go back, come out of our hibernation and go back.